order. All in favor?
Aye.
Hopefully everyone's reviewed the agenda. And we're gonna, I ask for a call for approval of the agenda as stated.
Yeah, I'll suggest one thing. Given that Christine isn't here yet, maybe we can move things around. Like financial report, things like that. We could, I assume, can we move that up?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, you know this agenda better than anyone.
Yes.
And
So we have Leanne. We have Leanne as well, right?
Yes, Leanne's already online waiting.
is that okay, Vicky?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's great. Yeah.
I mean, Doug probably was better, but
Why don't we?
Want to put the consent agenda to get that out of the way?
yeah,
Or?
it's fine.
All right, so has everyone reviewed the consent agenda from the prior meeting?
Yes.
All in favor of approval?
I make that motion to approve.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the consent agenda is approved.
All right, and you guys like to move up with the financial report next? Can I get someone to move to, I guess, consent to rearrange the agenda with moving the financials next? Sorry.
Oh, I think so moved.
Perfect. All righty, and let's go ahead and get Leanne online and I'll pull up those financials. We'll go ahead and, let me see. Grab the financials. Go ahead. Well, that's fine, I'll get it in a second.
Do we want to welcome the guest?
Actually,
We're
no.
good.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
before we do that, since we do have one guest, would like to welcome you and sit and ask that you introduce yourself.
My name is Robert Infraker, and I live in Cape Station.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have anyone else that's a guest on the?
We just have Leanne right now online. I will probably.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Give me 1 minute, Leanne. Pull up your financials for you.
Okay. I'm gonna start out with the assessment receivable aging report.
All right.
We're at 98%, doing good. The others are, of course, quarterly people. Keepers Landing, Surfman's Walk, Sumner's Crescent. And those are quarterly, so they're not going to be as high. Now you got me confused.
You said you wanted the aging report.
Yeah, you're going to click on that.
Can you see it?
No, all I see is it says aging report balance sheet.
Okay. You see now?
Yes, there it is. We're at 98%, and I think in the private session, we're going to talk about that last 2%. So I think you have a list, and we'll talk about that then. Any questions on here?
No, but we talked about this the other day. On the others, even though it is consistent with previous performance, we're at 72% of the target for the year. Doesn't mean we're delinquent on 28%, right?
That's right. It means that they probably made 2 payments so far.
Yeah, I think it's good to keep that in the record from what you look at the numbers to explain what's in there. So we're doing.
Would you like me to put a note at the bottom each time?
No, gives me something to talk about.
Okay, well, I like to give you something to talk about.
Well,
Okay.
just to clarify, do you mean that Surfman's and Sumner's are both paid on quarterly, whereas Basic and Keepers are paid annually?
No. Keepers, Surfman's, and Sumner's, most of their assessments are over $1,000. So because of that, they have the option to pay quarterly. Some of them have paid in full, but they have the option because their dues are so high.
The denominator on the paragraph is total due in the year, not total due so far in the year. That makes sense.
Okay, Dora, how about the summary sheet?
Can you see it?
I can, thank you. I don't need to go all of these, what I've written down. I basically wanted to tell you, though, I missed the insurance, which is, let me find out what it is. The insurance, which says it's over, I think like 200% or something. It is 8,500, account 8,500. I didn't mention that, and I should have. I believe part of that is in the wrong category. I believe part of it goes to the liability insurance. And Doug and I are going to look over that and try to see where we want everything to be. So I wanted to let you know why that was so out of whack. I looked on that on the annual budget because I think that I not divided that correctly. We've got all your balances on your bank statements. And I do believe that that's it, unless you've got questions on it.
So just a quick note, during the finance committee meeting, we had some good discussion on format. And I think, in the finance committee and in the board meetings, we're going to add just a summary, basically a health paragraph of how are we doing at the executive level. So for the next meetings, we'll do that. And for the next finance meeting, we'll work on that too.
I think I know the answer to this. I think the important thing here is Doug and Leanne and others are still working through. We've gone from an executive director to an interim executive director to a new executive director, the interim doing the budget. I think the key thing, and you can say it's true or not, is that there are a lot of moving parts here, but it looks like there's nothing in here that would indicate we're going to be off our budget.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the important takeaway. There's a lot of, we're up here, we're down there, we're off here. That's just timing, or there's nothing that would make us be off budget so far.
No major variances.
Right.
And I just wanted to say, in addition to that, it would seem to me that because we have a lot of moving parts and we've got timing issues, et cetera, what's important from my vantage point as a board member is if there is something that is trending off and there's a reason behind it that we can correct, I'd like to know that. If it's just circumstances, timing, whatever,
sure,
that's inconsequential. But if there's an action to be taken because something has gone off the rail.
Yeah, Betty, I think that's our discussion, the finance committee, that's sort of where we were going with Doug and Leanne, exactly that point, because Leanne has taken what was your suggestion a year ago and laid these items out, which I think is helpful, but now we need to put it back in the context of, to your point. So I think that's what we talked about with Leanne. So, and although occasionally dreary, it actually has been an effective meeting every month.
I don't think it's really.
Whatever. It's not dreary. Not always
relief in there. Yeah.
We can talk about gap and we can talk about reserve studies.
Not action.
I mean, it's not like talking about the boat park. I love dinners.
Okay, all right. I did want to say, on the accounting fees master, that's a red flag because I know the auditor's fee's not in the budget. I think Russ missed that one. That's account 8610, and it is at 6,700, and I think that is just the money for Duncan.
So that's the accountant fee, not the auditor fee.
Yeah, I think that's just I think that's a miss on that one.
Can we add to the executive to discuss the $3K in covenant fines that are being paid? Just to review that.
Yes.
Yes, that is a single homeowner for the most part that
Yep.
Dora has been working closely with. They're choosing for some random reason to pay the fines rather than fix the problem. I understand there's some history. It's probably best discussed in executive session, given there's some individual reasons there. So, but yeah, for sure. I think that, the expectation is that, well, let's just clarify that we are not running out and jacking up, fees and fines on folks. That is a one isolated incident for the most part. And we're working with that individual to try.
And I would make the point that it's one individual with an issue, and the board's been working for well over a year trying to help them solve it so we can, they have to stop paying us money. It's been I think we're going out of efficient and average way.
We've worked with them for 2 years before the findings started, and we're still continuously working with them for the last year, trying to get that to stop.
It's just an odd situation.
Yes.
It's not a battle, right?
Oh, no, she's not even upset. She's just, she's working with us and apologizing every time and trying to figure out her own thing too.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, yeah.
I think that's important.
Sure.
Sorry.
Anything else, Leanne?
I do not have anything unless you guys have questions.
Nope.
All right, thank you. Alrighty. Well, we can move on to their members' comments or.
Welcome.
Do we have any?
Do we have any comments? Anyone online? No?
No, just Ann?
As always, let's go back to online at the end of, the session. Hold on, I'm an executive here. Sorry for my tardiness. I had a 75-pound bear escape my house while I was trying to walk out. So, okay, so. All right, at this time, we have Mr. John Fisher, and if someone wants to let him in, he's got a couple other people with him.
I think I told Diane to welcome you.
They're out on the deck. I saw them coming in.
Okay.
Yeah, let rules of public session, they could just come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have.
Yeah.
I think they're having a little mini meeting out there.
Oh,
though.
okay.
Henry.
You want to explain the bear thing? Because people may watch this recording and actually think it is a bear. You know how this island works,
You're so correct. Okay, yeah, this is,
On Facebook later.
his name is Island Bear, and it's a dog I rescued on the island. And he's an amazing dog, but he has separation anxiety with me. And he knows when, I walk around in a golf outfit and I usually don't put a dress on or makeup. And he got really nervous, and I don't know how he did it so quickly, but he bum rushed that door, got right past me, and he was not coming up. So, yeah.
I've seen sillier things start rumors on the island.
You're gonna see it on social media. Bears roaming the island.
75 pounds. Yeah.
Think that one through. I'm glad you mentioned that.
President of Housing Exotic Animals.
Morning.
Good morning, John Fisher. How are you today?
Well.
You want to introduce your crew here?
I will. All right, we had 10 o'clock on the course. Are you ready for us? Well, ready?
We are ready.
Okay, I need a little bit of time. It's on screen,
While you're setting it up, thanks for the opportunity. My name is John Fisher. I'm a property owner here. I've lived here since 2004 or 5, so a little over 20 years. I'm married to Terry, board.
We appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you a little bit today. Our objective is to introduce you to a concept that's not new. It's a concept that was envisioned, thought about, and looked at all the way back when the island was purchased by the Mitchells to develop further and bring it up to existing where we are today. It is a master plan that was put out. And part of that master plan envisioned having a look at it. How do we blend and grow this island? Number one, for the greater good of the island as a whole, keeping in mind conservation, preservation of the things that are so dear to us and managing this appropriately moving forward. So as we took a look at this, the concept of developing a soft commercial, if you will, that's what it was designated and listed. A soft commercial piece of property. It's unique. And our objective today is to introduce you to that concept. Again, it's not new, but has, as we look at it in a vision, come of age. It's time to move forward. But we'll give you some history, some information about the project itself. It's the design and development, the architectural renderings and reviews we'll give you today aren't something that we've been working on for a week. We've been into this and worked with it intimately with all the parties on this particular island that are subject to it, part of. We've met with the folks right here. We've met with limited officials. We've met with council. We've sought out and welcomed input, guidance, direction, so that we can present to you what we call a legacy project. You're going to admit it, I'm aging out. I'll be 75 in a couple of weeks. It's time to put up a project, kind of what I'm calling a legacy project, with the partnership of BHA and BHA, who helped with the original design and layout of Bald Head Island's master plan. So it's a legacy project for Chuck and his establishment architecturally. And my partner, our partner, James Hall, James wants to create and help with a legacy as a new owner and resident of Bald Head Island, his family. He's done numerous commercial building projects that he's very accomplished at. He comes highly recommended, and we do our due diligence about him behind him. But he's checked out, and he's done well, and he's recommended and checked off by limited and others in different points. So with that, now we're up and running here, I'm gonna start this presentation as the property owner, and I will be lending myself back to Chuck and James to ad-lib, not to ad-lib, but to help you better understand their specialty in this project. As we go through this, I would welcome you to jot down notes, anything you might like to ask us about at the end. And we'll be happy to entertain that and talk about it. Or go back to that slide and try to better understand, help you realize what it is. So without further ado, the vine. If you take a look at this first slide, from the very 10,000 foot view, many of you know in this room that years ago, for 12, 13 years, we had a warrior weekend project on Bald Head Island. That was something that I was happy to start, be asked to pull up and work with. And one of the things we did that we really liked and we looked at and appreciated. That's it.
Dora, can you broadcast the slide?
We invited in, and one of our acceptance of coming to their warrior weekend was to tandem jump, skydive into Bald Head Island. It gave them their initial view of a 10,000 foot view, but at 2,500 feet. And we let them jump out over the ocean and skydive in and land originally at the old site between the palm trees, or on the shady knoll down there, the grassy knoll. And then later, behind the Bald Head Island Club, as we grew to a community event. So this is the 10,000 foot view. This is your jump out of the plane view of where we're located, the property we're looking at. And if you look at the slide there, it's one of the highest traffic areas. It's on Muscadine. As you come up from the market, off of Federal, north and or Federal, and make a right-hand turn on Muscadine. There are 2 houses on the corner. Once you pass those 2 houses, there's 6 additional lots that go up to Edwards Extension. So as we get into this, I'm going to move on to slides, but we'll help you understand again the origin of the thought process, where we are, and our objective is that it takes a village to make this happen. I've been in positions as president of the BHA. I understand the responsibility for being an example of doing the right things. I've served as mayor pro tem. I understand the covenants, the issues, the concerns we have, where we need to be responsible. It says the goal says you're in a position like that. I helped start a commercial review. I understand the sensitivities of what we're trying to do is set things happen. So again, without further ado, this is the balance between residential and commercial. This particular piece of property is the only one zoned as it is, and it's confusing. It's soft commercial. What is soft commercial? It's one little strip of land. We're going to help understand the history, the background, what we're trying to do with it, and it requires collaboration between the association, Board Island Limited, who's very generous and willing to help us with plans and swaps as we might need to embellish area, make them better for us. We've had private discussions on all those things. So let's introduce you to Divine on the island. This particular slide is standing up top. Right there. Okay. The street out here is north Ballhead line, which becomes Federal. And if you look straight down, that's the marsh to the right. And as you come down that street, if you turn at the corner, that comes up, and the first building you see to the right of the green marked area, that is the that's the section of houses with the Tipsy Toad and the Academy and the Baldhead Bottle, etc. Just to the right of that comes over, you see the buildings all the way down across the market. So you come down and you turn around on Muscat. If you turn down behind that building, you can go right down to the, or in front of it, and you can go down to the market itself. So this is the property for geographic purposes on the right hand side of Muscadine. It's a busy corridor. It's kind of the center of the island. It's one of the 2 passageways that crosses from north to south on the island. So many concerns were taken into consideration. There's 6, 7, 8 lots down the street. We really want to keep cutting in pathways. We really want to add more curb cuts. We really want to take a look at a nice forest of peace and cut 5 lots or 6 lots up. And what can we do that's responsible? So this concept, again, over the years, it was toyed with a while back. Chuck Street that a few minutes. The developer had the idea, or was presented with the idea and the concept, but unfortunately wasn't able to come through with it. So we'll get you up to speed with that too. It's important to, it is a first impression of the commercial area job. Once you leave the marina, you work your way up, you get to the center part of the island. This is our commercial zone around this area, that little section. It's the middle island of Baldhead Island, not middle, the middle of Baldhead Island. It's the commercial. It's a quarter reflecting the island's values of development and environmental protection. We've kept that at heart all the way through this thought process. Again, this has been in process for over a year in design development consultations to get where we need to be. And to the point we feel comfortable coming and asking you for your collaboration, your additional help, which you've already provided a lot of. Thank you. And it's a transition from residential to commercial. How do you do that? What was really intended or the thought process from BHA, and the Mitchells? Why is this section a soft commercial? So with that, I'm gonna let Chuck, can you take a minute and explain a little bit of the history of the track and take those bullets there?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm Chuck BHA. Appreciate being here. I was really tickled when they called me. I came to Ballhead in 1990, started working for the Mitchells, and I swear to God, I swear that my first day I came in to work, Kent was late. As usual, when he got here, the first thing I started working on was the maritime market. And we worked up that plan, and other things happened. Mitchells were all over the place. They own most lots on that side of the street at that point in time, and they always intended to use that land right there as a lighter commercial, some way to transition between the big box commercial that you see on the right and the smaller units that you see in the forest. So after that property went into, they hired a joint venture partner sometime, I think in the late 90s, and that joint venture partner went out of business. The property got tied up in that whole thing, and then eventually got returned to the developer, and the developer then sold it to Mr. Fisher here, and he called James, and they called me, so I was tickled to be working back on my first baby at Ballhead 35 years ago. And since then, I've been doing a ton of other design work, and a ton of other planning on the island. I love the island, I have houses here, raise my kids coming out here in the summers. But what's interesting about this property is somewhere along the line, the zoning board adopted a set of zoning rules, and they farmed that out. This was in the mid-90s. This was like Wallace Farm, I don't know these names, but they were very supportive of what the developer was going to do. So that's why the zoning code got this neighborhood commercial designation, which said basically you can have housing over light commercial, meaning professional offices, things of that use, not high traffic use, not supermarkets or things like that. Those were happening here. So that's what the zoning code got as it is today. And the planning just kind of went by the wayside because nothing was happening. So John bought the island. The need on Ballhead finally percolated to the top where we really need all this. So that is where we are today.
Could I just ask a question? So to define what it is today, could you just encapsulate that? What is the use of this land today under current zoning?
Well, it's PDNC, and you could read the current zoning. It basically says that permitted use as of right is light commercial, and it goes on to define what that light. It's not. That's actually not the words they use. But, residential, commercial. I can't remember their names. Neighborhood commercial. Sorry, thank you.
And what does that mean?
It means that you can have an office down there, so a real estate agent, an architect, a lawyer, a professional, maybe an interior designer, someone along those lines, supporting the community contractor, supporting the community without storage of contractors.
Office space as opposed to retail.
Correct.
Low traffic, low density, not designed for high traffic retail.
Thank you.
Home office.
And how is that different than a different residential house that someone lives in that's an architect that's working out of their home?
Well, quite honest, really, it isn't different. I mean, in a sense, it's different that, so when the covenants were written back in the 80s, the developer was so paranoid about allowing other real estate agents onto the island because they own all this property and they want to control the sale of that property. So the covenants have really strong language against this kind of use, stronger than most covenants in the rest of the world have. It is legal in the United States. They very traditionally that you're allowed to work on your house. But are you allowed to have visit you or have a meeting
Like
there?
a cleaning service.
Right.
Yeah, that's a valid point, Lucy, and just to add a little bit to that, the primary difference was in vision here was we have a lot of people that work from home. we know it's not proper to run a quote unquote business with trafficking at your home. That's against our covenants. It is proper to have residential soft commercial where instead of working out as an office out of your house, think about that. We've all worked out of our house doing business or whatever. The difference that's designated here is we want to build these first 4 areas that are designated as your home office. I'm not grabbing a bedroom. I'm not grabbing the spare room over here or the parlor and putting my little desk in there and trying to work. I am in a professional setup type office, but I've got living space for family that might want to leave. COVID brought a lot of this about because we can work from home without high density. No high density, not retail, not major traffic. And then you'll see us talk about concern over safety for even small traffic in and out of this. But the primary difference we've had people ask, and again, doing some due diligence, talking to different people. Is this viable now? Is it not? Limited thinks that it probably has come of age. There are plenty of people. We get inquiries. Is there any way you can have an office to work? I come down with a family for the summer. They're there. I got to get away from the kids. I got to get away. I got to get work time. I don't have a place.
Isn't there a number of lots on the federal road east of the Conservancy that were designed these same covenants with about 25, 30 years ago that limited?
There are.
How many of those have been developed the way you're describing?
Well, I know at least 2 were developed that way, but it seems like they've gone into ownership that doesn't use it that way. They just live in there or they go downstairs and they use the space without, to my knowledge, I don't know each one of those properties intimately, but that was the exact plan for those areas.
That's
But it
correct.
has not developed the way they expected.
It has not.
The demand was, yeah.
So there is already property like this zoned this way on the island, unless the zoning is different.
The zoning is different.
What is it
But,
different?
so I can't tell you exactly the difference between those 2 areas right now, but the typology of what you're talking about in terms of residential over a semi-public office space is the same.
We probably, you probably ought to know that because if you're saying there's a demand for this, yet there's already a supply of those lots and properties that are not being used for this, it wouldn't make any sense.
I don't think there is, I think people who bought it ended up not doing it, so. From their research, there definitely is, I know people ask me that as well.
Your point's valid, Paul. That, like Sandy Bristol down those houses. Yeah. They were built with the intent. They were built with the intent that you could have an office. Lots of them sold off. There's been just a few of them developed.
Yeah, that's how
You're
that's how
correct.
You're correct. Because that was going to be a light commercial to go into a little heavier commercial.
Correct.
That was the whole plan. The plan, obviously, for whatever reason, that never developed.
It hasn't come to fruition because we don't feel there was a demand for that transfer then. Now, and again, based on the research we've done, and it's hit or miss. I don't know. We feel like now there is a demand. We've talked with Limited. We've talked with realtors. We've talked with rental agencies that get calls and say, is there an office I can run to? Is there somewhere I can work to see anything like this exists? We don't think back in the day, if you will, the Friends of Abbey days, if you will, you can relate to that. We just didn't have the clientele here. In the winter, you know what we did? We folded the shutters. Now we feel like we have come of age and we're at a point where we think this is viable, supported by what we've heard from others, real estate people. And we literally, James and I have been asked, we've got 3 different people have already asked us about having some tenancy with the office and living space with them. So we just think it's come of age. Okay, thank you for the question. No, it's valid. It's fine.
In reality, is that, good architecture and good planning isn't gonna necessarily control the use. I mean, someone can buy one of these and be an artist and just, sit downstairs in that space, paint, and never open their doors. And that happens up all the time. So,
We also feel like there's some concentrated into introduction, if you will, to the commercial area. This is putting it together. And the soft side of entering from residential, et cetera, around into a commercial zoning type area. And with some intention to look good and proper fitting. But go ahead, Chuck, finish.
So did Reed Page own these for a while?
Repage over.
Yeah, or limited?
No, limited owned all this. They did a joint venture partnership of some type where they titled down the lots, and I'm not sure the specifics of that. Reed Page tried to develop it, and he owns some other property on the island, and when he went out of business, that got tied up, and then I think it came back to the developer at some point in time where their focuses were just elsewhere, and demand they didn't think was there, and in the process of trying to get out of the island, or try to sell a lot of their extra real estate, this went up on the market.
It worked its way back to limited. That was several years ago, and that was the end of it. Limited then talked to me later and said, hey, we're not going to sell this with enough. This was the intent for it. This goes all the way back to the original master plans and design. We think the islands of age for this now. It was unfortunate or fortunate that that company did. Yes, they owned it, and then they decided, okay, we're going. I'm not going to say that. We decided to shut the business down for whatever financial reasons they had, and it defaulted itself back to limited, which sat there for.
John and Chuck, I don't mean to interrupt, but what should have happened is maybe we should have had this in executive session if it's going to go on. We typically limit member comments, a short presentation. Is there a lot more? And
No, I'll take it.
all right, we shouldn't be asking questions. Let them wrap it up. And then if you have a question before, once they're finished, we can do that, if that's okay.
But your points are valid, Paul. Thank you. Want to clarify? Please go ahead. So the survey, the master.
The first thing you do when you want to do good planning is you analyze the site. You can see the big dark green ones are 20-inch specimen trees. Those are the most important trees. The lighter green ones are significant trees, 13 to 20 inches. And the small green ones, the light small green ones are 12-inch trees and larger. The rest of the trees are mostly just saplings, small things. And you can see topographically, we've got a pretty good sized dune. That's that red sausage shaped piece in the front there that comes up pretty steeply unless you can drive by that. There's a little hole in that back. So those are not ideal places to build. The land kind of goes from low up on the north side here to higher in the middle and then low on the south side. And the south side is the most open opportunity to build.
This shows you the layout of the 5 lots in order to develop them independently and one-on-one, and the potential footprint that would require removal of some of the specimen type trees. And we're trying to avoid that. Go ahead, Chuck.
So this is actually the development pattern that still remains with the BHA, a single family lot development pattern. I've arbitrarily only placed 2,200 square foot houses as conservatively low with a 220-foot garage. But you can see there's no way to use these properties effectively because the setbacks restrict you, and you end up losing a lot of trees. I mean, we've calculated that we lose about 10 of the major specimen trees on the site. We create a lot of curb cuts along the front there because everybody has to have front-loaded access. So you're going to see up in there, and it's just not conducive to the nature of that area.
Go ahead.
So this is our holistic plan to try to work with what's there. This is where we are today. This is what we're proposing to do. We've got none of the trees come down. We've placed buildings in their obvious place. We use the track as a continuous track and analyze it for what's there. That gives us the advantage to think of everything holistically, not only the architecture, but the stormwater engineering, the utility service, all those things. We'd like to add this rear use right here because that will allow us to get into the back and serve the back from the back. So garbage collection, kids' trikes, all that stuff can kind of be in the back. It won't be riding down they're driving into Muscatine line, or be in that back quieter area.
interest to living areas, so forth, will be off of Mustang. We don't need more curb cuts, and traffic. That's a high traffic area. We'd like to do this use in the back. And we're working in consultation with not only the association here, we work with each of you. We've also worked with Limited and what they can help us with on lands and swaps that might benefit everybody in the story. We want to keep the traffic off Mustang. We don't need more traffic up there coming in now.
We're showing one more parking area that the zoning code would currently require. So people who are coming to visit the artist or the interior designer would park there and then walk in that front side, whereas people who live here would have a little garage in the back and they can keep their personal kind of space in the back. So we have a great division between the semi-public side or here front door and that back door, which can be all private.
Okay.
And I'm going to move on to the this is kind of a curved appeal of what we're thinking about. One nice thing we can see, we're able to model the actual trees at this point in technology. Back when we first started here, and you had to use a radio to talk to someone through the jammer going to this site. So it's pretty cool. That's kind of the streetscape for the front. This is the streetscape for the back, so a lower scale, consistent with a lot of the muse ways. We're following the actual alleyway standards for the city, the village. And this is to kind of give you an idea of the scale of it. I don't know if you can read these right here, but we have 85 foot of BHA land right there right now. And the right-of-way requirement for the muse system would be 30 feet for the village. We're trying to meet all their standards so they can be turned over to the village and they can maintain it. We're serious about the legacy project. We want someone to take care of this after we're all gone, so the village will take care of that. And the resident owners that live in the community will take care of the rest of it. So that gives us a 55-foot buffer, and you can see the setbacks we're using. The closest possible building between the two is 113 feet from the backside of the Vine building. My typical rule of thumb for all that is, between 30 to 40 feet, you can't see through the woods. And you can look out that window right there, and you can't see anything. So the fact that we have 55 feet, a lot of it up in this area right here is cleared because the recent water still work up in there. So we have the opportunity to replant that to protect that buffer. Because I know that'll be a concern for the people.
And what is the 55 feet? I don't understand.
So we have 85 feet of common right there. We're asking the association to allow us to take 30 feet, create a right of way that would be granted to the village. So we can get, and then that leaves 55 feet of BHA lands left to complete a significant buffer to the very above.
The primary, you want to acquire some more land. Yes, we're looking. Trying to learn. No, wasn't clear. We want to understand if we need to, I'll answer this right now. I know we need to move this along. But we've had discussions, preliminary discussions, of course, and my best experience is HOA. We did land swaps, for example, with the Board Meeting Club on the golf course. Why would the HOA want to own the lagoons and the property and the lands? Who takes care of this? The golf course. The right thing to do, and this was back in my day, 10 years, was we were approached, would you help us with right of way or grant deeds or whatever? So we did. We deeded those and put them over where they're responsible for that land, as it should be. Same thing we're asking for here, in the interest of safety, primary keeping must.
Yeah, but that never got done. Because the HOA, the biggest holdup was before I was involved in golf. HOA gonna have to go to its members for approval, never decide never to go. So the golf lagoons are still owned by the BHA, parts of them. That deal never got done.
Okay, well then I'll stand corrected. No, believe me, but the intent, that was the intent, that leads to. Previous BHA board said, we need to go to the membership for approval. It never got to the point of going to the membership. Okay. In our discussions, it was brought to us that the right of way, if the right of way can be granted, the village, according to the mayor and the council, we have to work with all the parties here because this is. No. They all said, if you think it's right, I think that Limited, for example, said we can work with the HOA and provide you some land swap, like we did when we did the mulch site. We added property there for the greater good of the community as a whole. We did the dog park to give them access. We did the boat park. We helped move that around and switch it around using HOA properties and some swaps and changes that made sense. And we're looking at the same thing. We still have an opportunity here that's been verbally acknowledged and talked to with Christine and others for the board to consider that we want to develop this. Village has told us, council, develop to this standard. We'll take it. We love the fact of safety, keeping the garbage to the back, the trucks to entryways. We don't need more people, traffic, safety issues, or cuts, curbside on the front. So yeah, let's make this work. That's the aspect to help you better understand. And your point's valid. Go ahead. I think we just got a couple more here. Wrap it up. Do you want to do this? Yeah. Basically, our key points, we do want to optimize the potential of the site for the legacy project to credit us all. And we can't do it. It takes cooperation, interaction, and help from the association with an easement or right of way. Helps us to keep traffic off. It's acting in the best interest of the shareholders of everybody to do that type of thing. The village requests, yeah, build it to this standard. We'd love to have the entries, pickups, etc. The village, yes, let's not cut it up. Let's plant it as a single, but we're saving all these trees. We're doing, what do we stand for? Bought in on. It takes, it's a hodgepodge. It takes the HOA, it takes the village, concerning the buildings. All this has to click and it's everybody's collaboration. Creative development that fits the island and the location. And we want to do it responsibly, where it's not throw up another house or commercial type looking setup. We got all kinds of designs and buildings. Let's have a consistency, something we'd be proud of, look good. It blends in that neighborhood back. It meets the aspiration of the original island masterpiece, the master plan. And it is a first impression for design standards and commercial center of the island. We just started the commercial review board a year and a half ago. I was asked to chair that for the reason we don't want to see. I'm not going to point out specific large, great big buildings to be built. We want it built responsibly. We want it to blend in and to do what we want with the island environment. Village guiding planning method will preserve all the specimen trees. If we're allowed the footprint of this as we've recommended and coming to you, that saves all these specimen trees and all this. But if you had to do it on the property line, you'd have curb cuts all up front. You're going to lose some trees. But that's, we don't want to do it. Without care consideration of unique fortification, do much better than currently structured. We can do better. And allow for collective engineering for fire safety and utilities. All that's been taken into consideration with this Muse right away. And again, village would take it and maintain it. Garbage collections, no garbage trucks out front, no big traffic on Muscat. Let's go ahead to the last thing. Oh, I'm sorry. We do feel it's a time and age for professional facilities based on the research and what we've talked to people. We've talked to rental agencies. Yes, we have clients that ask about office space to go work a week or away from the family a little bit. We've got people that want to have a real office. They didn't take their parlor and make it their home office. We think that's the age now. Elegantly transition the scale of a commercial area to the scale and development style of the residential areas. Let's softly transition to that center commercial area. And this does it. We think that accomplishes that. Eliminates clutter. We know we don't need clutter. We don't need more traffic. Let's take everything into consideration. Sustainability, we're calling Project Divine because of the location, what it is. It provides an updated infrastructure with a plan in place for long-term maintenance. Not building something to be crappy, dilapidated and last. It's called a legacy project to remind us of our responsibility and do what's right for the village as a whole. Provide resident stewards vested interest in sustaining this community and the forest location. Let's preserve it. Allow the village to provide services, maintenance, control of both the most common road and the use. They've already agreed to do that. We're at one.
This is our ask. We want the support of the BHA to allow us to look at this project in a holistic way, not put us into the square pegs of individual lots, except the light commercial use, and work with us to try to make that either right away or easement work. And easement is a possibility. The problem with an easement is that you just don't. It'll have to be a private road, and then you have to rely on the people who end up buying here to take care of it. We don't have the power of the village to go for it. So that's why we're asking for the right of way. The next step, the mayor has given us a pretty good list of what we need to do. The village and the mayor have been really supportive of us. They have a list of what we need to do to meet their requirements. It's pretty straightforward. Their zoning law and their other standards are really well articulated. Unfortunately, the BHA doesn't really have any because it's all new to you, obviously. So we would lean heavily on them for that technical, functional part, and kind of continue to work with the village and you guys for the aesthetic parts, and make sure that everybody's happy. So that's kind of where we are. Anything else?
So put that into actual things to do is we need to basically give up our governance over the property. If that doesn't, that's probably a big term, but that's it, right? So it's no longer part of the BHA.
It's more of allowing us with the village.
It is under our.
It's under both. That's why it's.
Well, okay,
go ahead. I'm listening.
It's under ours. So
okay,
we're asking that we give that up. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But the BHA has wasted so much time staying involved with Swan's Quarters. It's just wasted a bunch of money. BHA should have given that up years ago. So giving it up is not conceptual. I want to make sure I understand. So we will no longer have any governance over it. Secondly, you want to acquire some of our land.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what you're going to be able to pay us, right?
Well, we want ultimately the village to require.
Okay, we don't know how the village.
Yes, because they're willing to accept it.
This is editorial. We went through the same process years ago in stage 2 with the parks down there, and turned it over to the village, and it was a disaster. The village is, I'm not talking about today's village, but the BHA stage 2 turned over the public parks down there to the village. And I don't know if you ever go down there. I mean, it is nothing compared to what it used to be.
Yeah.
When the association took care of it, it was in good shape. So I'm a little reluctant to buy into the village knows what it's doing. Because they get, anyway, that's, don't have that pretty high standards.
But I think, Paul, I heard something different, or turning over versus right away. I heard that you're asking for a right of way on the BHA property.
Technically, we're looking for that right of way granted. And we would feel it would be granted technically that the village would own and maintain that. And their positive points to us were, we prefer that easement, and yes, we'll take it, build it this way. And it keeps traffic on Muscadine because we already got a problem with traffic. We don't want more curb cuts. And the fact that back to this side, up to everybody's. If we flat this and lay it out this way, we can put that muse back there. We've got 100 and some feet through there. That doesn't affect anybody that might live on the street back there.
Well, and another editorial comment
And
is,
they'll maintain on letting it. And I agree with you. Council today, there's doing much better. Let's say it that way. Right. We're maintaining parks and doing things. Your point's valid. Thank you.
well, and to your point, Paul, all the muse systems down at Gateford Station are private. I think they're still privately owned, and they are maintained by the association. And that has seemed to work, at least from my perspective, going down there and looking at that. And we did that because those are narrower muses, to work around trees and things that we were doing down there. So the village standards, it is a little bit different. So it could be done with just an easement and a private, right?
Yeah, Vicky, to your point, and I guess I was using a shortcut. If I own property and I'm gonna give you the right to use it forever, whether that's through a sale or through
Do we have any more
and
questions?
there ought to be compensation. We ought to be paid for that.
I guess I have one more question. Are there 5 or 6 lots in question?
There are 5 lots in this plat. The 6th lot belongs to the owner of the house at the end who bought it for a buffer back. And, we'll have conversations. We don't want to do anything with that lot. We think it's a great opportunity to keep the buffer and again, the transition. So, yeah, we're trying to do this responsibly. And again, to the point, and I know we got to wrap this, to the point of the right of way and the muse in the back. Again, we are in a position that we can offer some land swaps that would help you. For example, I know the boat park's blown out. What if we got you more land for the boat park? What if we can make some of these things happen? We all benefit, and that's a moneymaker for you. And we're doing the right thing, trying to plat this thing and make this work environmentally correct and responsible for the community. Are there other questions? I know we got to wrap this up.
I have a bunch of questions, but I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, so what's gonna happen is, Chuck is going to email myself, his presentation. Dora, I've asked Dora to add discussion, board level and executive, at the end of our executive session. And, we can help fill you in on a lot of this information as well.
Yeah, you guys have been intimately involved.
Any other, yeah, and any other questions, we'll get to them if we can't answer them. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Moving on, we're at number 5, director's report. Doug, what you got for us? Oh, Dora's pulling it up. No, this one goes.
I couldn't understand what he said at the end. Have they even spoken to do they own that lot next to it now? In the house?
I thought he said that John owned the lot.
According to this deed, it's only 5.
No, there's a house right next to
And
it.
there's 6, so I don't know.
Let's get into that at executive, because I don't want accidentally names to come out and.
Okay, the only thing if I could say one thing is, and we talked about this a couple of years ago on ARC stuff. I mean, anything. The neighbors, property owners around, if we're gonna change something. But I think anytime we make any significant exception to the ARC rules, the neighbors ought to know.
Yeah.
And I think this is,
It has to be.
I think this whole thing is very odd that we're hearing it. He's dealt with limited, he's dealt with the village, he's dealt with all these people.
You're not wrong.
Seems like they got a big plan that includes acquiring our land and us. It's a little odd that we're hearing it now.
We'll get into it.
Yeah.
All right, morning, everybody. And let me make one point of clarification. on that last presentation, just for the record. I did meet with John and his team twice. The intent of those meetings was to quantify what the ask of the scope was for BHA only. There were no negotiations or any discussions in that meeting regarding anything that they had planned or were trying to do as far as avenues of success. It was, what are you asking us for? And that's what was provided to you guys in the briefing. So
Yeah, and this actually, this was raised casually in a board meeting a year ago by Carrie on behalf of someone else who must have had something to do with this, as to whether we'd be interested in giving up our oversight of that land. And I think we told her that's a crazy idea.
yeah, I just
So
want to clarify that.
this isn't new. It did come up from Carrie a year ago. It was it wasn't even an agenda item, but it did come up. So.
All right, so just our usual red flag, green flag homage to Russ. So we're still working with these slides and we'll eventually migrate away from these things. But so we've got a lot going on. We've accomplished a lot, I think, since the last meeting or two. We are fully staffed now. So that's allowing us to start dipping into some of the things that were on the red flag list last meeting. So some of that low hanging fruit that I wanted to tackle was, calling of the files. We had a tremendous amount of old files, both downstairs and upstairs. So we have started that process of calling some of the old files per our retention policy, which Maddie and Dora have been working really hard on. So we've got that process in the way. Started downstairs. I think we're pretty close to getting downstairs wrapped up. And then we're moving upstairs to the ARC files. And that effort will involve looking at some of the older files within the file cabinets. Anything that doesn't meet our retention policy, we're going to get rid of. Anything that, for example, on a new build is a good example. If it's the final approval set and the logic that got us there, we will keep that, obviously. But if there's anything that led up to that, of thick, redundant plan files, we're going to scan most of that and be done with it. So we're going to try to reduce that paper as much as possible. As you guys are aware, unfortunately this week, we've had a couple more emails from our favorite database software company that we did not approve that were sent out. As we're trying to pull information out of them, it has not been easy because we've not really had a designated customer service person to actually talk to, a salesperson, and we keep getting bounced between. That process has not been easy dealing with them. So we are evaluating other softwares. We have been doing that for a few months. We're ramping that effort up. Most recently, we've got two, I think this week and next week, that we're looking at. I believe the last email that went out to the residents was part of their getting, and we literally just got a text last night, Leanne did, saying that they are doing away with the old version of Enumerate and adapting to the Engage portion, and didn't bother to tell us. So, is what it is. We're working our way through that. So, apologies to the residents that had to deal with that. We did not see it coming either. So that's in process. Member service improvements. I talked about sort of that low-hanging fruit within the office space here. We've started cleaning up the downstairs, getting folks presented to visitors as they come in the door, facing visitors. These are just kind of things that we should be doing. We moved that effort upstairs slightly. We've retweaked how Allison receives guests upstairs by turning her desk and doing some things. We want to do some more stuff, obviously. And we went back to the open door policy for the ARC door as well after doing them. So I think that's working well. I know they've had some visitors go straight up. We still get the visitors downstairs. So we are continuing those efforts. I touched on, the other things that we're digging into a little bit was, just making sure database information is up to speed. We have added taglines to our emails to say, hey, if you want to make sure to update your owner information, please send it to Diane. We're also pushing that on Compass a little more recently so that we can get that word out. And then internally, we're setting some goals, I think, for some individuals on how we can attack that as well. We're also reinitiating some of that shared information that I think maybe fell by the wayside for the past 6 or plus months as it relates to the permits and COs and the sharing of that information as far as timing. So we had a pretty good meeting with Stephen over at the village, and we sat down with him and said, look, I'd like to know if you guys are receiving requests for permits for work, and we haven't seen it come through our system yet from the ARC standpoint. So we're reinitiating some of those links that I think just got dropped at some point. So it was a good conversation. They're providing us with a report. We're sharing only, lot and address, anything that would be public information, not specific owner names, obviously. So that there's a two-way street there that we opened back up. I think that'll be helpful for us just to make sure that we're keeping our records up to date. Vendor maintenance, not real happy with the custodial around the building, especially on the outside. So Door's been issuing some requests for proposals to look at that. So we're looking at that currently. We also obtained some different quotes for golf carts. That we have lovingly named one of them out there the Krusty Krab, and then I think there's another name for it that we won't mention. But it's on its last leg, and we've added more people, and we are having some competition on getting the key to the golf carts recently. So we looked at a few different options there. We can talk more about it in executive if you want, or
Yeah, let's talk about that in executive.
Okay.
So we have facts to share.
So we did do our due diligence on that and went out and got multiple quotes and different views at that, so that we could be prudent with that. Village contracts, property. We did accomplish getting the insurance renewed, so we're good there. Reserve study, I think that has to have been lingering for a little bit the first part of the year. We did get that initiated. We did get those folks out here. Spent quite a bit of time with them. I think Pam especially went around with them and showed them all the different areas and had discussions. Pam has been very helpful with, given she has a lot of the history with the properties in these locations, answering questions as well. So we've had a person from the company come out, tour the entire site, spend a day out here. We've got a golf cart. They did their measurements and everything, their updates. Went back to the office, and then we've been exchanging questions for about 2 to 3 weeks, clarifying what they looked at. And I got my first draft this past week out of that. So we'll clean that draft up and probably have something to present to Finance Committee, hopefully next meeting for them. So that's progressing. No real surprises there. Staff vacancies, as we mentioned, are full. I think that's all our green flag items.
Yeah. I just have a question.
Sure.
Under member service improvements, I don't know if this is on your radar or not. We identified last year when we were looking at our procedures and reviews, and we got down to final inspections, and we have this glitch where some homes have been sold without the owner's knowledge that a final inspection has not been approved. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about a mechanism to try and communicate with the real estate people to make sure that that is known by the buyer, so that we don't end up giving them a black eye when they buy their home and then we say, well, you're in violation. Is that on your radar anywhere?
It is. There's two things to that, I think. So what I mentioned earlier about getting that CO report from the village tells us that that project's done, right? So we then send more out to inspect it if we haven't seen the request come to us. And then from the realtor standpoint, we're working on something behind the scenes at the moment to have a realtor luncheon to educate the realtors.
And our most major attorney, closing attorney in the area.
Yes, and add some closing attorneys, the major closing attorneys to that list as well. So we're working on the format of that, and I'm thinking that's probably late July. That's when we're leaning towards doing that.
With further effort too, Mara and I have actually sat down and taken each one of the contractors and gentlemen that tend to sell the houses mid-build. And we've kind of come up with a plan that helps them execute what they need changes wise faster and get a hold of us a little easier. And so we're kind of working on an internal mechanism that helps them help their new buyers as well. And we've only had one go through so far since that conversation, but it's gone through in green flags. So.
Yeah, that's a great customer service.
It would also help those builders if we figure out a way to work on the deposit. So what happens is, if we got that fixed, they'd be much happier to work with us on this other item.
Yeah.
I mean, they've had people who have bought a house, and then we write the check back to the new owner, and the new owner refuses to give the check back to the builder.
It's done differently here. We've always said this. It's done so differently here than anywhere that I've ever done business.
All I'm saying is we'll get further with them if we fix this other problem.
Little fixes to get to the big fix.
Yeah, if we fix them both, I think it'll be.
I know that behind the scenes, we're working on some SOP around that process as well. So one last item I forgot. I did attend a directors meet, what I call a directors luncheon. It's basically all the heads of all the entities on the island. So it was myself, Chris from the village, Chris from the conservancy, Chris from the quality, David from the club, Chad actually from the developer side as well. And so, that's one of those meetings where you get together and sort of talk about common interests. A lot of it, the conversation was around beneficial adjustments to ferry schedules for staff, which I think some of that was getting rolled out. So I thought it was a good meeting. We will continue those meetings. I mentioned when I first came on that I felt like that was extremely important for us to keep those lines of communication open. So that was the first step at really having a meeting and getting some discussion flowing. Since that meeting, we've had some, just one-off meetings that are, I think, very positive. So we're starting to, get that ball rolling. I think, we will have more meetings, and, hopefully we can sort of get a common agenda going for those meetings in the future too. Things that we're still working on.
You want to have no time
Steve, my time ran out.
No, Rick.
I ran one guy off.
That was a good idea earlier. You should have just.
Early on. All right, so fine tuning of financials. That's format of financials. Let me be clear on that. The financial position of the association is very good, and but we want to work on that presentation. These are things that I've talked about in the finance committee meeting. Also improving internal checks and balances with our team. Initiating, clean up our cost code information for the line items of our budget, and then empowering staff to own some of those line items. I think it's important to help staff kind of take some ownership of it, and it also educates folks on how much money they have to spend. So working on that behind the scenes. I noticed that our CPA and our auditing process is slightly behind where we would want it to be. I personally have had a couple of conversations recently as of this week with our CPA to light a fire, to get our 2024 financials wrapped up and, so that we can get them over to the auditors and you know, expedite that process as much as possible. In that discussion, we touched on that, you know, come next year, we will have a schedule that these folks will be following, and we expect them to adhere to, that has some drop dates toward the beginning of the year. So at any rate, we are working on that. We touched on the enumerate situation with their emails, and we are working fairly hard with Kim, and Maddie's also engaged a little bit on content that we're working on to improve our Compass and our Ireland report presentation. Our advertising is slightly down on that. I think we went from monthly to bi-monthly, and we lost some folks, and so I'm not overly concerned about that. I think that we're gonna address and modernize some of that presentation, which I think will then bring back some advertisers, I'm sure. And we're also, you know, I think this next Island report will have a slightly different format and just layout. Expect more to come on that. The Compass has been well received. The changes that we did to the Compass, just modernizing it slightly. I don't think we've taken full advantage of, you know, share of advertising space between the two, which we could, and there's some opportunity there as well. So I think there's a lot that we can do with those that we just haven't been doing. We certainly need content. Certainly would love to, and Kim is doing this, reach out to any of the residents that have, you know, really good photos that they'd like to share. I know we've got some photographers on the island. And so if there's anybody that you guys know about that's out there that could shoot us images, we always could use stock images. So that's, you know, something that I know Kim's kind of reached out to folks too. So the reserve study, it has kind of reached its draft stage from the consultant. What will then happen, or what I'd like to see happen, is we take that information and incorporate it into the forecasting model that I had developed and sort of shared with the Finance Committee a couple meetings ago. So that, you know, that's another item on the to-do list. And then we have, we've been working on the boat lease, which, you know, we had some challenges recently with some delinquencies there, and how do we handle that? I think I'd like to expand. There's an individual case that was involved with that, so I'd kind of like to expand maybe on that more in the executive session. But in this session, I think the idea there is, let's get the language updated a little bit on the agreements as it relates to how we deal with folks that either abandon a boat or a trailer or very delinquent in that process and are taking up space, especially when we have 40 to 60 people on a wait list. So we need a little more meat in that agreement for that. So that's the intent of what we're working on there. So we have an idea on how to do that, and you know, we can it's in process. So, you know, I can share some of that in the next session. So I think that's all I had on my list today. Any questions?
Not for me. You covered it pretty well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. All right, moving on to number 6, financial report. Do we have? Oh, thank you. You know I hate that part. So did I say that out loud?
On to, we're on to committee updates.
That's why we love Paul and Vicky being here. I get to zone off for a few minutes. Okay, moving on to committee updates. That didn't get broke down because I think we can just kind of throw it all together. I'll start off and then get it flowing. We don't need to per se have a lot to say, but just so our members know that, yeah, we are board liaisons to different committees. We actually show up, we have meetings, different things, great things go on. So for me, I'd like to, I think, write some things down. See if I can find them. For me, I'd just like to mention that, I am board liaison to ARCA. It's going quite well. Our meetings are shorter, but they have more meat to them. We're dealing with facts and not opinions, which has always been my goal. Everyone seems happy. Our team members are happy. We've got Chris Howard back in our key lead role as ARC coordinator, director. Lots of new faces, lots of help. And we're out by lunch. I knew this goal could be reached. And, there's not a lot of naysaying. I don't really like that. It's truly about how does this home look with, in its setting around other homes. And, Kim, and I'm sure she had help, worked on a paint book, which for people who need to look at something is amazing. She's doing a great job. She's not finished. She'll update it probably once a year, maybe more. And to make it simpler for people to come in and just say, well, I like that conversation, got that combination. Can I do that? And it's so long as you don't see that combination within eyesight around where it's being painted, yes, you can use that. She's got forest looks, she's got ocean looks, and she's got marsh looks. So many different things, roof and stains I know she's working on. So that's amazing. So I just want to say, we have Chuck who was just in here as our contributing architect. Tiffany's been doing a great job as our leader, our fearless leader there. And all our committee members are happy, which makes me happy and be able to bring you great news. So that is my committee. And anybody else who has a few words about theirs, please speak up.
I have two committees. One is the resource, recreation and conservation and beautification. And that's a mouthful. What does it encompass? Well, I just wanted to say that the most current activity has been the pollinator garden, which really has been a huge success in terms of collaboration between Islanders, the BHA, and the village. The actual site for this garden and these gardens in the future is village property. But we have been providing the knowledge and the human resource to do the plantings. And the most recent activity, and Doug, you probably have a follow-up on this, is to confirm with the village what their role is versus what our role is. And I believe we're at the point where we have confirmed or are in the process of confirming that the village has a budget line item that will support the future expansion, as well as we're working with the Conservancy on any potential education for Islanders about the significance of the pollinators and what they can actually do with native plants, et cetera, in their own habitat. So that probably needs just a follow-up from us prior to our budget cycle. But it looks like we've got a nice collaboration going. The other thing I wanted to mention is the, oh God, what is my other committee?
Education.
Education, recreation, yes. As everybody knows, summertime, the businesses really pitch in. We don't have to provide any activities in the summertime because, the businesses are really going full bore and getting people involved, and lots of good stuff is happening. And even some of our private citizens here on the island have been working hard to provide some great fun times. And yes, the pirate invasion is coming in August. And I believe we've already seen some communication from Claude and some requests for support. And I know this is one of Christine's favorite projects. So that's important. But I want to say to you that we are kind of going to be talking about what is our role in the future. Is it really recreation? Now that time has moved on and we have a lot of different venues for people to enjoy their time here on the island. Is it more around education? So we are going to be talking as a committee as to what does our future hold. But I will just say something here. We have spoken about the Smith Island Social, which was originally part of and has been always been part of Meeting Weekend. And Barry and Kim and I have been talking about trying to engage the other entities on the island, not just the BHA, to really create an island event.
Yep.
And I think we've sort of been lacking that outreach, and we could certainly do more in terms of participation and communication and marketing. So that's something that we're going to be talking about as a committee.
And sharing costs.
And sharing the cost, right, and sharing the cost. So the committees are alive and well, and we're looking forward to more people joining us in the future.
Yeah.
As we are looking to refresh committees. So that's it.
Absolutely. Anyone else have anything to say?
I'll just echo what you said, Christine. I'm on ARCB. It is night and day. David Ray does a fantastic job. He is so kind to everybody, but I want to give a shout out to Dora, Chris, and Doug, because the forms and information y'all give our committee is streamlined everything. We know what's compliant, we know what's not compliant. We hit the issue head on. There's no opinions, there's nothing, we get it done. Well, we were in that meeting less than an hour and a half. Remember that? Yeah, we were an hour and a half. We had 11 items. So hats off to you guys. Keep it up.
Big deal. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. I tell you what, they have streamlined this process in a way that nobody would have believed we could be where we're at right now from where we were at last year. It's night and day.
And the island survived.
Oh, and let me tell you, and we'll go into executive session, but I'll give you examples later of the feedback I've gotten.
Good. Okay.
Well, finance committee, we get to talk about all the time. It's really interesting. I do have to, Doug and Leanne, it's been taken a long time. It's a challenge. We're, they're working through it. And I think our committee actually meeting more frequently than I had to meet last year has been
Love it.
effective. And actually, we've got some good committee volunteers who are willing to help. So I think.
Yeah, I popped in and I saw it. I was like, okay, I don't belong here.
But I do have to just mention the pollinator garden. It did raise an interesting question for my grandkids is why would you put things to have more bees? It was probably a teachable moment.
Yes.
I probably screwed up the teachings. They did have things, but they're okay.
Oh, no, your wife wasn't there to save that moment, huh? Okay.
It is cool.
What about you, Steve?
Long range planning so far this year has been dormant as it has not been tasked by the board with projects yet. I know that we're going to be discussing that in session here momentarily. There's one item that I think we need to tackle, but the intent is to go ahead and convene a meeting starting in July, and then tasking the committee with, subject to the board approval, with a couple of items that again we can discuss. I can say that one of the areas that I think is probably ripe for long range planning to have oversight and monitoring on an annual basis would be the transportation and ferry situation. I've been kind of the board liaison to the and with invaluable help from Paul last year on the ferry schedule change issue. Under the change agreement and the consent decree that we all the stakeholders who were the interveners in the ferry schedule change situation agreed to, transportation is under an annual requirement of monitoring. So it was a change that was agreed to provisionally. The schedule is in effect now. but it's going to be subject to at least annual, and I believe it might be semi-annual review. So I think that there's probably no better committee to be in charge of that than long-range planning to ensure that those schedule changes are in fact working out to in a way that's functioning adequately for the island. In the short run, just over the last month, BHI Club proposed to the other stakeholders in the schedule change issue. BHI Club requested a slight change that all of the stakeholders met about. And when I say all the stakeholders, I mean association, village, and the clubs and the academy. Unanimously agreed, and it's been submitted to the Utilities Commission to change Friday and Saturday departures from the island during the summer schedule from 9 to 9:30 to better accommodate the service staff off of the island for the clubs. And everyone, after consideration, was in agreement with that. And we expect that Utilities Commission should promptly approve that. So that's just the one thing that actually has happened that might be of note to the membership. It's not in effect yet until Utilities approves it, but we expect within the next couple of weeks it likely will be. That's all I have.
Well, that was a lot of substance, so thank you. And yeah, we definitely will speak about that in executive session. I've already added a couple of things, Doris, going to strangle me. Okay, so thank you, Steve. Moving on, unless anyone else has anything to say about committee updates. Moving on to Dora Ritchie, she has some updates on CWS.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of touch base on this. I know it was a concern for some of our members is just how that transition was going to look. So I went ahead and included in all of your packets just like a little flow chart as to what that looks like. It's still taking on the same style that we had done in the past with the committees. The only difference is we're now on what we call a schedule. The committee originally had that blockaded into 12 sections that they would split among themselves and get to when they were on the island. We took those same 12 sections and we have just created them into months. So for instance, month 6, June, we went ahead and did section 6. Madison came out with me and I showed her kind of how we run that down it's still from a street view. We go on a street view, we have the same evaluation checklist. We look over that evaluation checklist. If there are issues, we take pictures to help illustrate for the homeowners, especially if they're not on the island full time. We fill out a very detailed checklist to let them know what those requirements are. We send out the information to them both digitally and in the mail. And it gives them about a 60-day window that they can call back or they can email in or even write in that says, hey, this is what I plan to do within the next 180 days. They have those 180 days to address the issue. If it's addressed before the 180 days, if it's already resolved, and we just kick it back out into the wild for the next year. I think one of the great improvements of this is that as a homeowner, these sections are on our website. So if you want to know when your section is going to get a cute, roadside visit, you're going to know it's going to be in this certain month. So they kind of prepare you.
Where on the website?
I
The resources?
There's a CWS tab. There's a tab.
With some input from my own personal thinking. I don't know how much traffic we get to our website. And given that this was an issue previously, it might be nice to have a little article or something in the Compass that says, okay, this is our procedure. Okay, if you're interested in when your section is being reviewed, you can look on the website. I just think we need to either drive interest to the website, or we need to communicate it a little differently. Because I actually had a couple of people ask me what had happened to this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad to see this.
I believe Kim actually already has done a Compass announcement on this. I believe it was in April. I want to say the end of April, beginning of May, we did have a Compass announcement go out that said, hey, these are the sections, these are the ones coming up. I believe in the Island Report.
Tried to attack that pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So
I think this is a repetitive one. I think we can throw it back out there again and,
Sure.
show some progress. People don't look at every compass. So I wish they would, but, reality is, yeah, so. No, I do think that's, something we need to.
Just, I actually had someone, and 2 days ago asked me about this.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, wow, great.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I wanted to do kind of an update after everybody was done talking about their assigned committees, is just to let everyone know that it is still something that's very much adapted into this island. It's progress. It's still going on. It's just, we now have I have this sent up to Kim already, so she would feel that it would be good to post the flow chart as well, that it would be on there. But all this stuff in the flow chart is explained online as well, in case people have questions about where their section is or how the whole operation itself works.
Okay, great.
And that's all, unless you guys have questions for me.
Yeah, I think on CWS, I think some sort of regular reporting here so we know how it's going.
That's right.
The CWS is like one of those things where if something blows up and you're a board member, it's like, it comes out of nowhere. So if things are going well, things are going poorly.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to look at even cases. Does that make sense?
I
Right?
mean, it could
Because
be,
that's where you get cornered in the market.
And that's, and that's why.
What do you people?
That's why we brought it to discussion for the board to get us out of it and our committee, homeowners, members out of it and leave it to the staff. Now, Dora, you've had enough time to head this up. How do you think it's going?
I mean, I took Madison out with me to show her the section that we did for the month of June. There's a few things that we have that we can write up and send out for the end of the month. I think it's going, as the person who is the staff member on the CWS committee, it's not slowing the staff down in any bit of the process. We're still doing the same kind of concepts that we did before. Honestly, it's one less meeting to prepare for and attend each month. So that is actually, on staff wise, it is actually a lighter duty for us to just go out and do the checklists. The nice thing is too, as much as it's awesome to have more hands in for helping when it comes to a committee, it's also good when you have 2 people doing something, because then the opinion and the evaluation is across board the same way. So when Madison and I are out looking at these things and evaluating these things, it's the same set of eyes and the same set of thought that's evaluating from the month prior to that. So it does have almost like across the board feel, a little bit more of a
Consistent.
cohesiveness.
Do you have any member feedback yet, or is it too early?
It's too early. Like I said, I took Madison out to kind of show her how we do this. I'm in the process of showing her how we build the packets. They'll be out by Monday. So I haven't had any response back to it. I don't foresee a lot of response coming back, because it is the same process that has been going on for the last 2.5, 3 years. It's just being done internally versus having a committee.
So, and this is related. We were asked to provide some input into lots with mulch.
Yes.
What happened with that?
So with those, what I did was, the ones that had actual clear cutting, there ended up being, letters going out for that in a compliance sense. Those were mulching. I went ahead and called and emailed if they didn't answer the phone, and just let them know, hey, because a lot of those people will buy those houses and they've been mulched from new construction, and they're like, that's just what we do. So what I would do is I would reach out and give a friendly phone call, and then follow it up with an email, and especially if they didn't answer, and have the snippet in the guidelines that says, hey, you had your property mulched once because it was to help with the construction. This isn't something that we do moving forward. I had 2 or 3 of them be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. I'm like, what? Now you do. So I started with a friendly phone call and an email. And if it's something that happens again, then it can become a compliance issue. But I figured a lot of these guys, it's their first time on the island, and it was mulched when they bought it, and they didn't know better and to look into it. So I gave out just a kind of heads up.
I think, and Dora's been doing a great job of this. I think we ought to add that as a report out for us to next board meeting. And obviously we wouldn't include names, but maybe we can discuss quantities of issues, and we could probably do the same for the ARC now that I think about it. Just how much are we moving through, and we've got our monthly reporting kind of dialing in. So we'll think
Even
about that.
trends. I mean, I think one of our concerns about the mulch was as those yards start to appear, others think, oh, well, I can do that. So it's helped to understand, it helps to understand trends that are going on.
We had individuals, and we had a contractor situation that we we went directly to the contractor. Typically, we deal with the owners, but there was some repetitiveness going on there, and we had a fairly straightforward conversation with that individual. So those things are happening. We just haven't been reporting. So
Good job.
Thank you for that. You guys have been, in Madison, thank you. You guys have been handling that amazingly. All right. Any other questions with CWS? All right, moving on to board president's report. I don't have a report per se, just like to touch on a few things that have happened throughout the month plus. I want to start off with Joe Bronner passing away. Very painful for a lot of us. He was an amazing steward of this island. From this building to the club, to the conservancy, the chapel, you name it, he touched it. And this was a man part of the Generator Society. His wife is Judy Bronner, lovely woman. They have a lovely family. And that was a tough pill. And I called up here and I tasked Kim and Dora and whoever their team to do a complete full check on Joe and everything he touched here. And Judy's going to have a service here on the island. And I just thought it would be appropriate to have something on behalf of all the members to talk about Joe and that we know his rich history. And we thank him for his service. So I did good there. So I'm going to move on. We thank Joe for all of his service, and he will be missed. All right, so I've met with the team members and I've met with Doug, did that separately, wanted to get up to date on how things were going and how everyone's settling in now that we're fully staffed, how the team members are working with Doug. And I can say this in this session around everyone because everything's perfect. Everyone's happy. The education's happening. People are learning, they're working together. Everyone's doing a great job. And I still think it's important that we continue to check in with the team members that we work most directly with. Make sure everything's going well. I went and met with Chris and she said, it's the funniest thing. She's doing great. She said you would have to walk up here with the one case that's a little harder to work on right now. And I'm like, no, that's great. You just said one. That's fantastic. So everything is going really well. Doug seems to like it here. I don't think he's going anywhere.
well, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then lastly, I just want to mention to everyone that I always had a goal. I always hoped this would happen, that more positive text, emails, and phone calls are coming to me than negative. I'm not cornered in that grocery store anymore next to the cold milk and creamer with someone saying, what's happening with my house? No, people are coming up, giving me a pat on the back, telling me to let everyone hear now that they are thrilled with this place. We have turned around that negativity and people are excited about the future. So thank you all. And you guys let every team member know. We are so thankful for you guys hanging in there, coming to work here.
Thank you, and thank you.
All of us, but thank you. So really excited about that. And that's the good note we're going to end my report on. Oh, and with that being said.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All right, we are adjourned. Let's turn that off. Steve, we'll see you in 10.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.